A very warm welcome to our October In Conversation with Healers. And I'm delighted to welcome this evening Richard Stuttle, who is one of our trustees at the Harry Edwards Healing Sanctuary. And you're in for an absolute treat this evening because Richard is a fascinating man, lots of interest, very interesting. And I think this hour will just fly by. I'm certainly really looking forward to it. So to give some background on Richard has a great interest in spiritual and personal development, trying to make sense of why we are here, our life's purpose, and the nature of our world. He has always believed healing is the foundation of all spiritual practices. In 2020, Richard felt it was the right time to begin a 2-year healing course at the Harry Edwards Healing Sanctuary and qualified this year. Richard's career has been varied, with over 25 years' experience in hospitality and the creative industries. He has a passion for art and design, playing a key role in building a number of successful brands. Today, Richard is a working platform medium, spirit artist, and healer, demonstrating and teaching in churches and venues around the United Kingdom. As a professional artist, Richard creates fine art for exhibition and intuitive art for healing and well-being. Richard's work hangs in galleries and private collections around the world. He is exhibited in galleries in the United Kingdom, France, Australia, and the US. He now works on commission and incorporates art within his mediumship and healing. Spirit art and mediumship. Richard studied at the Arthur Findlay College, a college for spiritualism and psychic sciences. His first visit was over 20 years ago. He has undertaken mentorships with Minister Colin Bates and Jeanette Marshall, CSNU. Richard is one of the founders of Caroline's Rainbow Foundation. This is a travel safety charity founded in 2002 following the tragic death of his sister, Caroline Ann Stuttle. Richard speaks regularly to students about the importance of travel and travel safety. In 2019, he was able to take the time to write a book showcasing the milestones of the charity, his travels, and dealing with long-term grief. In 2021, Pegasus Publishers published Chasing Rainbows, The Stolen Future of Caroline Ann Stuttle. Richard is a great admirer of Harry Edwards and became a trustee of the Harry Edwards Healing Sanctuary this year. Richard, a very warm welcome to you, and thank you for all your involvement in the Harry Edwards Healing Sanctuary. You're already making lots of positive differences and different changes, and that's great. So a very warm welcome to you this evening. I'd like to take you back to your early years. If you could tell us perhaps a bit more about your background than I have alluded to here.
Yeah, of course. Well, thank you, Alison. And of course, it's a privilege to be able to speak to everyone this evening. And it's a real honor to be part of Harry Edwards. It really is. It's sometimes you feel a calling for these things, or you feel drawn to it. So going back, I mean, I had a really privileged upbringing, and I don't mean that in the financial sense. I mean that in the sense that I was shown things. I was shown nature. I was shown that nothing was wrong. So I know we'll touch on spirituality and understanding the different parts of the world and what goes on in it. But I was always told to embrace what I felt. I was always taught to look at things from multiple angles, from multiple perspectives. So I'm very lucky. My mother is a very caring lady, and she's a great healer herself, and my father's an artist. So I was always surrounded by that world of creativity and that presence and that energy of love. So I'm very privileged in that sense.
And were you aware of spirit as a child? And if so, how did that manifest?
So, yeah, I mean, I was always aware of energy and how things felt. So, you know, there's people that you were drawn to, or certain areas that you're drawn to. And I was always aware that I felt affinities with certain things, and drawing and spending a lot of time in nature I found that I was attracted to water. I really liked going near water. I really liked going to the beach and the seaside. So I just started to break down what I liked and what I didn't like. And I felt the energy around that. If we're talking about people passed to spirit, I mean, a few of our family members, grandparents, great-grandparents, all passed when I was relatively young. My sister was different. She could see spirit. And there's a story that one night she was in bed asleep, and the next day she got up and she said, Dad, there was a guy stood at the end of my bed and he looked like Grandad, but I could see straight through him. And I thought, hang on a minute, this is quite incredible. He's never stood at the end of my bed. So she could see spirit, and she could see them quite clearly. And it was never, we were never told that it was wrong. I felt it. I more like felt the presence. And certainly when I got older and my sister passed to spirit, I could feel her as if she was still in the room, because I knew what it was like when she was sat in the chair behind me. And then when she was no longer here, I could still feel her sat in the chair behind me. So I became aware of spirit in that sense. And certainly that intuition side of things, that knowing that someone's going to call what they call coincidence. But I believe it's more than that. So I was very aware of that kind of different side to life. And I was never told it was wrong, which I feel that a lot of people are. And a lot of people are conditioned into that way of this is right, this is wrong, this is reality, and this isn't. So in that sense, I was very, very privileged.
But in actual fact, it's something that's completely natural.
It so is. It so
Yeah.
is. And as you know, as you go down the route of spiritual development, and you go down the route of looking at your own sensitivity, it's removing that conditioning that part of you that has been brought on by society, or that conditioning to say that it isn't natural and it isn't part of you, and this is what it is and this is what it isn't. And the more you go down that road, the more you realize, well, my intuitive nature, or your intuitive way of looking at the world, is how the world actually is.
And certainly when I've had an intuition that's usually warned me against doing something, I might not understand the intuition at the time, but as things have played out, it's been spot on, and you feel there's somebody really looking after you and preventing you from entering a situation you're not meant to enter.
Yeah, 100% agree. The difficult thing is trusting it, and trusting it time and time again. And it doesn't matter how many times we know that that's the right thing to do, we still question it. And I feel that that's sometimes the conscious mind wanting to know why and wanting to understand why. So it's that battle between the conscious mind and the knowing and the soul and that spirit within us.
And I think sometimes I certainly find, I think to myself, is that just my monkey mind making this up, or is this an intuitive thing? And sometimes it's very clear, and sometimes it's a bit borderline.
Yes, yeah. I mean that's down to the development, isn't it? And understanding. And certainly when we talk about mediumship in a while, it's knowing what is you and where you sit, how you feel at that point, and then what isn't with you. So what isn't with you? Well, what is that? And I was very lucky when certainly. So Caroline passed, and I'll use that sort of milestone. She passed when she was 19, so I was in my early 20s at that time. And I went off to Australia, and I was sort of traveling and soul searching myself, trying to find out who I was. So I got to spend a lot of time sitting and just thinking, walking on the beach, thinking, hang on, what is me? What do I feel? What would Caroline have done if she was here? What would she feel now? Did she go here? And there was many places that I went that she went, and it was walking in her footsteps. So there was a lot of time I got to spend understanding what is me and what isn't me, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. So when and how did you first become aware of healing?
Well, there's a story. There's a little story there connected with Harry Edwards that I didn't know for a while. But my grandmother, her generation wasn't necessarily that aware and maybe allowed to embrace spiritual healing, you know, down to religious beliefs or society and how it was at the time. But she sent a letter for my uncle Bob, to Harry Edwards,
right.
and she got a reply, and it actually, she said it made a difference. And I didn't find that out for many years. So that there is kind of a family link there and a history. It'd be nice to find that letter at some point if it's still in existence. But I think healing goes back to, for me, I was thinking about this question, and it goes back to me when I was a child and when I got poorly as a child. And your mother comes and she brings you some soup, or she comes to check on you. And I'm very lucky because my mum's great. And I know not everybody has had that kind of relationship. But I really felt the genuine caring from my mother, and I put that down as healing. That is when healing really started to make a difference. So when she'd come in and give you something to make you feel better, or when somebody says a kind word, it's those things that really spark that. What is healing? Well, it is positive intention. It's someone asking for you to be better about yourself, or asking for help from the grand architect or from the universe to say, hang on a minute, can you just send a little bit of love towards this person here, because they need something. They're not feeling great. So that's really where I started to understand healing. When we talk about art as well, and art with healing. So there's some paintings that just make you feel good. Some colors that you're really warm to, and whether you do it consciously or subconsciously, if you're not well or you're in a certain mood, you can put on a jumper that can make you feel better. Or you can look outside and it's a blue sky day and the sun's shining, and automatically that makes you feel a little bit better. So those sort of little insights into what healing kind of is, and the positive intention about it. First real experience with hands-on healing was at the Arthur Findlay College when I was 19. So I first got to go there, and it was a great experience to just step into that world, and it felt so natural, and everybody was really nice. And you think, is this normal? But it is normal, so certainly there. And then visiting Harry Edwards, the foundation day and things around there, and actually experiencing Harry Edwards' style of healing.
Yeah. You're a healer yourself now. You've graduated from college. Tell us about some of your healing successes.
Okay, so it's how can you quantify them? And I've sent out distant healing, and I feel that's a huge benefit that people, I did it on Facebook. I'm at the sanctuary if anyone would like to have distant healing, and people comment and say thank you very much, and it's made a difference. There was an interesting thing last week, actually. I was at the college, the Arthur Findlay College, and we were doing exercises, and this lady wasn't feeling quite herself. And it wasn't that I was doing hands-on healing, but it was just the words that you speak at the time with the right resonance that makes a difference in her understanding and her own self-healing ability. So those things I feel are really, they're the points and the milestones where you start to understand, well, healing is the hands-on and the method and the attunement and the channeling of energy, but it's also the tone of voice that you use, and the way that you interact with people. So even if you're not tuned in and you're not doing healing in a traditional sense, or in the Harry Edwards sense, or the whatever modality you choose, the Reiki or anything like that, I feel as you've graduated or gone through the healing process and gone through life experience yourself, you are naturally that way. So healing seems to just be around you, or the things that you say you're intuitively put towards people, or you're intuitively put in their pathway, so you can say the right thing at the right time that can hopefully make a difference. People have said things to me many, many times, the same thing again and again and again, but it's only when you hear it in the right tone of voice at the right time that it can really make a difference. So, I mean, the hands-on stuff at Harry Edwards is fantastic. And I'm lucky enough to have given healing, certainly in the group, but also when members of the public come. And it's a real pleasure when they leave and they say, thank you very much. And I feel a lot better.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think also with distant healing, for those who might not be able to get to the sanctuary, that can also be incredibly powerful, and you can still feel the energy. I can remember years ago, I'd asked for some distant healing when a family member was seriously ill. And I was sitting by this family member's bedside in hospital, and I could suddenly feel this surge of energy, very positive. I was feeling it, and it lifted me. And I said to the healer afterwards, by any chance, were you sending healing at this time? And they were.
Mm.
And we hadn't had an agreement over time or anything. I just asked generally for distant healing. And I could feel that energy.
It's tangible. It is
Yeah.
tangible. And I think once you're aware of that side of things, and you go into that kind of modality, you're aware when it's been sent, you're aware when it's around. It's just another energy. It's a frequency, isn't it, that you're attuning to.
Absolutely.
And I mean, as Harry Edwards said as well, that the distant healing is the future of healing.
Yeah. What do you think are the key benefits of healing?
It goes across, yeah, it goes across as every aspect of life, I think, really. So you're meeting a group of like-minded people. You're meeting genuine people if you go somewhere where they deliver healing. So you've got that commonality in conscious mind. You know, you can have open conversations with healers or with people in that either spiritual or healing community. So it connects you with people, and they're generally genuine people. They're doing it for the right reasons.
Yeah.
Healing is for me, it's working on the energetics, isn't it? And it's removing blockages within your energy field. Not that we, or certainly for me, know anything about what I'm doing, because why would I know? You're channeling energy, or you're asking from a spirit team or spirit doctors or the universe, whatever you believe and how it works for you. And they know far better. So to me, that goes to trust. For the patient, for the recipient, for the healee, whatever, again, your terminology, you know, I feel there's a bit around, they're going for it, and they're spending some time focusing on themselves, giving themselves something that they need. And that is really beneficial, because people don't take the time for themselves. They don't take the time to even have 5 minutes, or to go for a walk on the beach, or, you know, to sit down and have a break. It's always the next job, or what I've got to do, or going for other people. So I think it makes people slow down and take 5 minutes for themselves. Obviously, the healing and connecting with that healing energy, that underpinning vibration of healing energy is priceless for people.
What guidance would you give anyone thinking of becoming a healer?
So if I look back and how I did it, and the time that I took, I waited until it felt right. I didn't. If I was listening to my head, I'd have done it many years earlier. But I had to feel it, and it had to feel right here. And if it didn't feel right here, I wasn't going to do it, because I think you need to be authentic. And I think you'll just know when the time is right. What I loved about the healing course and my group, or the group that I was in, was they were all from different backgrounds, entirely different industries, work-wise, and different backgrounds, lifestyle, and all kinds of things. But they all had this common interest in healing, this commonality, that they wanted to help people. They had the time to do it. And they felt the urge, and that little thing inside that says, now's the time for me to do it. So I'd really recommend that people do it when it feels right for them, not when they think they should do it.
I know when I first started my training, I had a real fear. What if I can't do this? And then I was told, well, it's not you anyway, you're just the channel. So, you know, it's the energy coming through you. And that just took off a whole raft of pressure.
Yeah.
And I just thought, right, okay, let's go, let's do this. You know, but I just thought, what if I can't do it?
Yeah, it's yeah. I think there's a huge piece around that, knowing it's nothing to do with you.
Yeah.
It takes the ego straight out of the equation, which is brilliant. You're setting yourself aside for something and someone or some energy that knows far more about life and how things really are than you do. And it's moving into that space. Another thing I like is everything happens the way it's supposed to happen and couldn't happen any other way, because that was the way it was supposed to happen. And that, again, just takes the pressure off, because you can't do anything wrong.
Yeah.
I think there's certainly a morality there, and there's certainly, you can't just sit back and do nothing. But I think if you're working from a space of love, or a space within your heart that you know what you're doing is right, then generally I've found, certainly through my life, that things have worked out in the right way. If I've been doing them for reasons that maybe weren't authentic or maybe didn't fit with my morality, that generally it's not worked out well.
Mm-hmm. We've touched on the fact you did your training at Harry Edwards. Would you recommend the training course there? And do you have anything else to say about it?
Well, as a Harry Edwards healer and trustee, yeah, I would certainly recommend the healing course at Harry Edwards. I think it's a wonderful course. It is 2 years, I would say, is about the right time. When you start the course, you think 2 years, this is a long time to do it. This is a really big commitment. But one, it's a big commitment. And that commitment means that you're all in. You have to do it. There was a few people on our course that dropped out through various reasons, not their own fault, or they just felt it wasn't right for them. So the people that made it to the end of the 2 years, are still there, and they did it for the genuine reasons and that drive inside them. The course is incredibly in depth, and I really like that. It gives you chance for your own personal development, as you said earlier about, can I do it? It allows you to ask those questions, and it allows you to explore those questions. I like the homework, the research, the reading around it. There were books I wouldn't have read otherwise. Sometimes now I need a push in order to do things, and the course certainly does that. The community, I mean, you're, as I'm sure with your group, but with the group that I was in, G19, good group.
16.
We're still friends. We're most of us, well, all of us, I shouldn't say most of us, all of us are still friends, and a few of us met up at the sanctuary the other week. So it's great to see them go off and create their little hubs, and they're all connected as healers. You feel it. So it's a wonderful thing to think about everyone who's graduated from Harry Edwards going off into their own world, and that modality within themselves is still resonating from Harry Edwards, and they're sending out that energy. So you can almost imagine that hub is just getting bigger. That energy is spreading out through the communities, and I really love that idea. So the course is a wonderful course. Plus, I got to go to the sanctuary every few months, which is a privilege to be able to hang out in that energy. There's a reason that Harry purchased the house. There's a reason that it's in that location, and you really feel that energy every time you walk onto, or you go onto the grounds, or you walk through the front door. And then to sit in the chapel as well is a privilege, and to see the furniture, the things that Harry used. The memorabilia that's around, the things that Harry collected, because they all have a resonance, they all have an energy. And there's the best times I had were sat in the lounge or sat around in the sanctuary at night when it's really quiet and there's nobody about, and you can just sit and be in your own world and connect with the sanctuary, connect with Harry, and all the energy around there. It's a real honor.
And I think I would add that we have 3 tutors currently at the sanctuary, and all 3 of them are really lovely people and great tutors as well. When I first started, I thought 2 years, crikey, that's a long time. And my course was lengthened because of COVID, and we had all the stop, start. But actually that time just flew by. And whilst we were all relieved to get the panel out the way, we were all relieved about that. we then looked at each other and said, oh, we don't have a course anymore. And we actually started missing the course. And you're right. I mean, I'm certainly friends with quite a few of people who are on my course. And I would say those friendships have developed into quite deep friendships, even if you've only known those people a few years. But they really are genuine friends. So it's a lovely thing, you know.
And you've got that, you know, that some of the conversations, because you've got that common link of healing, you've got that common interest. Some of the conversations have gone down routes you'd never expect. That's a wonderful thing. It's a really wonderful thing. I do feel that community, and certainly in the world that we're living in today, I mean, healing is far more accepted. The use of energy, the word energy, using that terminology now is far more accepted. Understanding the point of health and well-being and looking after yourself, and you know, these things have shifted towards the forefront of a lot of people now. So I do feel we're in the right space at the right time, and we're pushing forward because it is so important. And if we can understand how energy works a little bit, and we can just do our bit, even if it's a positive word to someone walking down the street, or you're walking on the beach, you can say a few positive words out into the ocean, and the vibration will go out into that water, and you know, hopefully touch someone else on another beach somewhere. You know, it's really important that we can understand the power of our intention, the power of the spoken word. And I think people are now, and healing is such a great gift to be able to become that close. Certainly for the hands-on, I do enjoy doing the hands-on, but you're intimate with somebody, and not in any other way, but you're touching their energy field, and you're offering them something, you're giving them something, and it's a little part of you as well as a little part of spirit. And it's such a privilege that people will allow you to do that.
And I think also when you're sending out the positive energy, the positive intention, the positive words, sometimes you have no idea just how meaningful that could be for somebody, and actually how that really can make their day if they're in a really bad place. So you just never know, do you? And it's always very important. I'd like to move on to spirit art. You are, as I said in the intro, a wonderful artist. I'm a terrible artist. I'm with like the stick men stage, you know. So I'm interested to know, what is spirit art? How does it work, and how can it help us?
Okay, so well, we'll go back a little bit then. So in the 1920s, the 1930s, I'll give you the English sort of run through a couple of people. It's evolved in the US as well, and gone back over time. But I mean, you can look at art through all of history, and people are channeling energy, or they're channeling something into their art. Look at the great artists, and there's just something in the paintings that they've managed to capture. But there was an illustrator called Frank Lear, and he was a fantastic illustrator, great portrait artist and an illustrator, did it for a living. He started to see pictures in his mind's eye, and he started to draw them, and he started to draw all these different faces, and very accurate on how he drew. And over time, people had come to his studio where he was working, and they'd start to recognize it. They go, oh, this is my granny, and she's passed to spirit. Or this is my auntie, and she died 2 years ago. So what he started to realize was that he was working with his clairvoyance, and started to see people in his mind's eye who were passed to spirit. And then he started to feel and get more information. So that was really where in the UK it started to come forward. Mediumship was quite big at the time as well, and we moved forward a little bit to a guy called gentleman called Gordon Higginson, fantastic gentleman. And he worked with a spirit artist. They were called psychic artists then, called Coral Polge. And she was a wonderful artist. She started to bring color into her art, and she was drawing people. At the time, it was thought that a medium needed to work with a psychic artist. So the medium would bring forward the evidence of the spirit communicator, or someone in the spirit world. And the psychic artist would link in psychically and draw the picture. So the two would work together. When we come forward to the present day, artists started to train with mediumship and mediums started to train with art. So the two kind of came together. So you would get what we now call spirit artists. So they'll be able to deliver some mediumship, which is communicating with people from the spirit world, and draw a likeness of the face of a spirit communicator. The reason that I liked it, I was really interested in it, because the point of mediumship is to prove life after death. Certainly within spiritualism, it's to prove that life is eternal. Life carries on past this world. And I believe as healers, as people who have done some of that spiritual development, that is quite a common belief within our community. So what more proof can you have if you can see a portrait of somebody who you don't know, who you can give evidence about and information about that can be matched to a photograph? I mean, that to me is something that even now, I think this is incredible.
Yeah.
And when I've done demonstrations and things, and someone comes up and shows you a photo on the phone and it looks like the picture you've just drawn and you've given the information and it's all correct, you think, this is, the conscious mind kicks in and goes, well, how is this possible? But you just know and you feel it's true. So the evolution of spirit art has been quite interesting over the years. And because I'm very lucky that I've had to paint and spend a lot of time drawing and a lot of time, developing the mediumship, the two have kind of come together quite nicely, really.
Wonderful. You experienced grief at an early stage, between your grandfather's uncle and then when your beautiful sister Caroline made her transition at the age of 19. What would you say to people healing from grief?
So there's the 5 stages of grief and the things that the textbooks say, and certainly I read through all of that. There's no rush. There's no time frame. It's up to you. People say you never get over it, you learn to live with it. And certainly when people pass to spirit who you wouldn't expect, my grandmother passed at 99 and it was almost, well, she's made it to 99. I mean, that's a great life that she's had. When someone passes at 19, you feel that their life has been taken away from them, and certainly had been in Caroline's case. Another saying, it was great grief is only for people who are left behind. So it's only for people in this world that feel that grief and go through that process. What I would say is everything is normal. When someone passes to spirit, they're in a different space. So they're not feeling the pain of when they pass. They're not feeling the emotions as we feel it. Life itself, or life here on the earth plane, I would certainly say is about experience. And when we link in with people in spirit, they're coming through with emotion, they're coming through with love. So that emotion seems to transcend, that emotional experience transcends this life. So I would say that this life is about that emotional experience. So embrace it. And if you want to cry all day, cry all day. If you want to laugh, laugh. There was guilt around having fun. And certainly when I traveled to Australia, I was doing things that she never got to do. I was going to places that she never made it to. And there was a guilt around that. There was a piece around that I had to say, well, I'm privileged to still be here and not beat myself up for me being here and her not being here. There's also a bit around, if you want to waste the time, then no time is wasted. And what I kind of mean by that, it's okay to not do anything. Because you think, oh, well, I'm here and I'm going through this and I'm still here and she was better than me, or whoever's passed to spirit was better than me and they should be here and I'm not. But if you don't want to do anything, don't do anything. It's the time on the beach and the time me sat where I thought, well, I'm just sunbathing all day or having a laugh and with my friends or whatever. I had to come to terms with that was okay. because it's okay not to do anything. It's okay to spend time just, going for a walk on the beach, or going just sitting and having coffee. You don't have to work tirelessly because you're still here. I mean, it's a huge topic, but I can certainly recognize the points I went through, the 5 stages or the 6 stages of grief, depending on what model you go through. But I wouldn't worry if they were years apart. Just to different order, exactly. The guilt, the acceptance, all the other bit. And even now, I've got a different understanding now, because I understand that life goes on, and she was on her own journey. And it's that you can't change anyone else's life, and you shouldn't try to. So I feel it's important to focus on your own and what you're doing, and make the best of what you have. It certainly gave me a drive, because I was still here, and I tried to be. I'm very positive, so the eternal optimist. I try to be. I don't know whether everyone who knows me would agree with that, but it certainly gives me a connection and a purpose, certainly a connection with spirit, and certainly a purpose in this life that I want to experience as much as I can. And I try not to now view it as good and bad experience. I just try to view it as experience. So tears of joy and tears of sadness are the same. They're not different. The emotional connection is maybe different, but the experience is just energy. And I feel that it's the pendulum swing. And I remember years ago saying, well, I wouldn't want the pendulum in my life just to swing like this. I want it to swing like that. And it certainly has. So I wouldn't feel guilty. I wouldn't beat yourself up for still being here. And don't feel guilty about what you choose to do with your life, because someone else's journey is their own and yours is your own. And there are no rules. So they're rules of what society says you should do, and other people try to tell you. But I'd really, if you can, and if it's possible, to just focus on what you would like to do, then that's okay. And that doesn't have to make anything successful or build anything or do anything. You could just do nothing. You could just put a flower on the grave every year and say, thank you very much, and say, I love you. There's certainly an element of appreciation for the people who are still here, and how precious time is. So there's an awful lot around grief. Whatever you feel, accept it and let it go. One of the other aspects that I think I held on to was I quite enjoyed the pain at some points. And I thought, well, this is mine. This is my pain. This is for me to hold on to. And it's okay, even if you let it go, you're letting go of that loop. But you can still get hold of it if you want to. But I feel sometimes, or certainly a good few years ago now, I used to hold that pain quite tightly, because I felt that it was a connection to her, or a connection to people I loved who had passed to spirit. And then you kind of realize, well, it isn't. It's detrimental to me in a sense, and I can still have that connection, but I don't have to hold that pain so close to me. I can let that go and just let that follow on its own loop.
I totally get you where you talk about connection. We had a conversation, I think, when we first met. We discovered we both lost siblings. In my case, my sister died under different circumstances. She died when we were children. And growing up, I had felt a part of me was missing because my sister was not by my side. And I should have had this younger sister experiencing things at the same time. And then years later, I was told that actually she is around me so often, and she's right by my side. And I just felt that connection. And the healing from that was immense.
Yeah.
Absolutely immense. you
Yeah.
know.
There's something around protection with younger siblings as well. You should have been there to protect her, or I felt. But yeah, I can, I mean, Caroline now in spirit has given me far more work from the spirit world than she did when she was here. So I thank her for that. Bless her little cottons. But yeah, you feel that connection.
Yeah.
And, she doesn't let me get away with anything now. So
Good on her. Good on her.
I know. Why?
Now, tell us about your book, Chasing Rainbows, The Stolen Future of Caroline Ann Stuttle.
Yeah, I mean, I'd been writing. I when I went traveling, so back 2003, I started writing a diary, and I thought, well, I want to record this, and I've written a diary every day since, which is great. So the majority of it is just scribble, but there are a few little elements in it that I thought, oh, that was quite profound. I don't know what space I was in then. That certainly wasn't me. But I had the opportunity a few years ago to take a bit of time, and I wanted to do it for the charity. I wanted to pull together what we'd done since she passed to spirit and do a bit of a legacy piece around Caroline and who she was. And record, because the charity is set up to help backpackers travel in a safer environment, to prepare them, give them education and knowledge before they go. Then I felt it was important to catalogue that in the book and say, well, this is what it's actually like to go traveling. And so there's a lot of diary excerpts in that. It's also a huge cathartic process for me to go through that, to relive a lot of the experiences that I'd locked away and put in a little box somewhere. And, I got to go and relive those experiences, which a lot of them were very pleasurable because I could remember sat on beaches or having great times with people. And a lot of them were very difficult. I was very lucky that a publisher gave me a book deal as well, which was really nice and unexpected. I said when writing the book, even if I just print one copy, for me, it'll be the job done. It was a really, I just felt I had to do it. But it goes through the whole from 2002. From I was in France at the time when I got a phone call at 4 o'clock in the morning. From then until the last couple of years, really. So it goes through all the milestones, and what we did, and the things that we did for Caroline, the things we did for us, the trial and things, because obviously, the story is that Caroline was murdered in Australia, and then 2004, 2005, we had the trial, and the guy was convicted and served 15 years, so it was all of that. I felt was a story that could maybe benefit other people who would find themselves in similar situations, hopefully not as horrific.
Yeah. And tell us a bit more about the Caroline's Rainbow Foundation.
So yeah, it's a charity. We've been going since 2002, which is great, and we've just wanted to help people. So we've gone down the education route. We went down a few different routes, but we wanted Caroline's Caroline's outlook on life, and her energy was so powerful, and she was so positive. So the motto of the charity is to follow your dreams. Is to go and do it, and not to be afraid of the world, but to embrace the world. So we try and do that, and we try and encourage people to travel. And I've had many times where people say, well, you want to wrap people in cotton. Well, why would you go traveling when your sister went traveling and these things happened? The world is such a wondrous place. It's such a beautiful place. So we take on internships with universities. We talk to students every year, and we encourage them to travel, but to prioritize their life. You only get one life. Everything else can be replaced. So we've come up with a three-tier, three-pillar method, which is knowledge, awareness, response. And it's the core of what we teach now. So the more information you know about a situation, the more prepared you are, the safer you are. The awareness, you raise your awareness at the right time, and you reduce risk. So you're aware in busy environments, and response, how you respond to certain situations, you respond to people, can dramatically change the outcome. So if people understand those three pillars and they can put it into different aspects of what they do and what they go through, when they're traveling, then they can hopefully reduce the risk, because that's the key. We didn't want to do bullet point lists of this is what you should do and this is what you don't do. It's encouraging people to travel. So it's a great charity. We have lots of volunteers. We're entirely voluntary-led organization. And it's just such a great thing when people go off traveling and you see them having amazing experiences. And hopefully Caroline would be very happy with that.
Oh, I'm sure she would. I'm sure she would. Turning to healing and the business of healing. So we may have some healers watching this who wish to set up their own healing business. What considerations do you feel should be taken into account when setting up a spiritual or complementary therapy business?
Do you really want to do it? It's a genuine question. It's a genuine question you should ask yourself. There's a book by Simon Sinek called It Started With Why. So you should ask yourself, why do I want to do it? Because it's a lot of work, and there's a lot of work around the bits that you probably don't enjoy. So healing is great if you go to the sanctuary and you can volunteer and you can do 2 or 3 healings a day, or you can volunteer and do a few a week or whatever it is. Do you want to be doing that 7 days a week? Is it still going to have that energy? Are you still going to enjoy it? The business side of things, it's incredibly difficult to make a living out of it. There's the question about charging. How much do you charge? You've got to make a living. You've got to make a profit. It's always delivered free at the sanctuary. All of these questions you should ask. But the main question is, ask yourself why you want to do it.
That's a good starting point.
Yeah. I mean, there's lots of things around the community, your target market, the people. Do you want to help people? Is that the best way you could help people? Is it starting your own business, or maybe is it joining a community of healers that are already doing it? How can you best be of service? And I do feel that when you're certainly in the spiritual communities, or you're a spiritualist, or any other religion for that matter, but if you're a healer, it's how can I best be of service? And that might very well be set up your own practice, get a group of healers together, and help people in your area, your catchment, or be mobile and go around and see people. But I'd ask myself why, and how can I be of service? How can I best serve spirit? How can I best be of service to, if they're Harry Edwards trained, to Harry? Because I do feel when everyone's done 2 years at the Harry Edwards Healing Sanctuary, they feel an affinity with Harry. They feel that connection. And it's, everybody talks about Harry. And, at the first time I started to refer to him as Mr. Edwards. And then, after you go through the 2 years, then it's Harry, isn't it?
It is indeed.
And I hope he'd be fine with that. I do hope
he would.
But it's how can you best be of service to Harry, to yourself, to your community, to humanity, and why do you want to do it?
Turning back to the spiritual side of things, what do you feel the purpose is of prayer and meditation?
Okay, so prayer is personal. So there can be personal prayers. You're praying to yourself, you're praying to your higher self. So you're just giving yourself that space, that alignment, and asking for things. Don't be afraid to ask yourself or ask the spirit for what you want. So I do feel that prayer is a personal thing. It's a personal journey through what you need at that time. So it's a conversation with yourself as much as it is with your God. Prayer in the community, so prayers for divine services, prayers around that, they're very much to bring people together, to bring that community together, to bring the energy together. It's really important that we do that we show people that everybody is connected, and we are connected with the spark of God within ourselves, and the spark of God who are the Almighty that watches down over us, Father God, or Divine Spirit, as we say. So there's that aspect. And prayer is positive intention going out into the world. And that is so, so important. And it's a wave, isn't it? It's a wave of energy that you're sending out. And if you do it en masse, it can make a tangible difference to the people who can feel that energy. So it's huge. We don't do it enough. We need to be authentic when we do it. We need to talk from the heart, and we need to ask. And we need to ask for help for ourselves and for others.
I think it's so important, isn't it? Whenever I see an emergency services vehicle on Blues and Twos, I always send a prayer for the person who needs that vehicle.
Yeah.
And their families with whatever they're dealing with, and for the personnel on board that vehicle for what they're going to have to deal with and sort out.
I think if if you know a little bit about the fallout from anything like that, then you understand the story around it. You know, it's when you've experienced things like that firsthand, you automatically, as you said, you know, you understand it's not just the person in the vehicle, it's the family and friends that are going to deal with that. It's the emergency responders that have then got to take a little bit of that home with them. Yeah. And it's their family and friends. It's the people at the other end that have got to deal with it. It's the people stuck in traffic, if it's a traffic accident, that have then got that thought within their conscious mind, and they've got to deal and process it. And it's so we understand that the ramifications of something negative can go out into various different parts of society, different parts of conscious thought. So why can't they be the same with the positive?
Turning to mindfulness, how do you feel it can help? And do you have any top mindfulness practices that you share with us?
Yeah, I mean, you know, you're touching on sort of meditation, but also attunement, or sitting in the power, which are a few slightly variants on all of that. Meditation, I feel, is just that space within yourself. So what comes up for me? And when that's something that's processing inside you, or that's something that you're aware of within your auric field or your energy fields around you, meditation is just sat in the quiet. It doesn't even have to be quiet. I find a walk on the beach is a meditation for me. It's distracting the conscious mind and allowing the feelings and emotions to come to the forefront so you can recognize them and process them. Because it's about process. What the conscious mind tends to do is compress all of these into a loop and put you into a cycle. And that's the job of the conscious mind, is to suppress the feelings and the emotions within. But we'll never get out of that cycle unless we allow them to come up to the forefront. Mindfulness practices, painting for me, it's great. And even if you're just doing stickmen, it's putting paint or putting your creativity on paper. It's incredibly important. And it's only the conscious mind and the ego that comes in and says, this is rubbish. This is great. Look at Picasso's work. Look at Lowry's work. He made a living painting stickmen. You know, it's only our understanding or our concepts or feeling around what is perfection that says that it's not good enough. Picasso said, you know, when he was a child, he used to paint like a child, and then he spent a lifetime trying to paint like a child because it's such freedom.
Yeah.
So that for me, or any mindful practice, listening to music, dance, anything like that, smelling the flowers, growing veg, anything that gets you out, connected with Mother Earth, connected with nature, to allow that freedom within you. I'd say is mindfulness. Attunement we go through with things where we're linking in with spirit, and we're linking in with attuning for the healing. So we understand that. Sitting in the power is sitting in your own energy center. So it's sitting in that power within you, and then you can connect, raise your vibration as the spirit world slacken theirs to create that communication. Does that kind of help?
It does help indeed. Now, gratitude is important. Why do you think it is important, and how does it help?
It's gratitude is important because it's a state of acceptance. It's to be grateful for what you've got and to show appreciation for what you have. And not we're in a world where it's the I want, or we attain something, or we want the next level, whether that be in a career, whether that be a new car, whether that be a bigger house. And so sometimes we get caught up in that, and we forget the appreciation and the gratitude for what we have and where we are now. You know, we are only ever living in the present. Tomorrow never exists, and the past is only a memory. So we're only ever in the here and now. And I feel that we spend a lot of time looking for tomorrow, or focusing on what we're doing, or the to-do list that's running through in our mind. And the gratitude just allows us to come back to the present and say, what am I grateful for here and now? Where am I now? If we're having a conversation, we are engaged in the here and now. And I'm grateful to be here having a conversation with you. That's what it is. And we offer a little bit of gratitude around that. And it's a privilege to do it. So it gives you a sense of almost well-being within yourself, within that moment, to be grateful for who you are, the gifts that have come through your lineage, that 1,000 generations that comes forward through your DNA into you now, here and now. What have you inherited to be grateful for? And that's gifts as well as trauma. Tomorrow is in something that it'll never manifest as it does in our mind. You know, tomorrow's always going to be tomorrow. So if we spend time living in the here and now and be grateful of the here and now, then we are always present.
I think what I've found as well is where you've had horrible experiences that have been very hurtful to you and upset you. For me personally, it's redefined happiness. So, you know, I find that just doing simple things can give me great happiness in a day, because you think, well, you know, I haven't had to call for an ambulance for anybody. There is no trauma going on. You know, it's all peaceful and calm, and this is lovely. And it just helps you to redefine things, I've found. I don't know if you found the same.
Definitely. I mean, to me, yeah, happiness is a byproduct of following your true purpose, I would say. So if you feel you're in the right space and you're doing what you feel to be right within here, you're following a journey, whether that be watering the plants or whether that be working hard towards a goal, you're in the right space at the right time. And that's when happiness steps in. You know, it's a moment of gratitude, isn't it? Or it's gardening, or it's picking the veg and that you've spent a long time lovingly cultivating to get to the point where you can eat it, or it's finishing a painting. And that can give you a moment of happiness. And you know, it is just a moment, but it should be held very delicately, because it's really important. But I do feel that it's something that we should have as the cherry on the top of the cake. It's not the cake itself, you know, the purpose and following your destiny, if you want to call it, or your way forward, what you're born to do in this life. If you believe in fate, or if you believe in anything around that, then happiness is the cherry on top, where we can have those moments of appreciation.
We're coming to the end of our hour. What is your favorite book, and why is it your favorite?
Well, I thought about this because I got the question. I thought, and because I've taken back to my childhood, I want to say my favorite book is Jonathan Livingston Seagull, and it's by Richard Bach, and it's about a seagull that flies far higher than it should, and it doesn't understand the limits of what it should do. It doesn't conform to what everyone else says it should do. It flies as high as it wants, and it flies as free as it wants, and it enjoys it. And it's a book I read many, many years ago. And for some reason, it just popped back into my mind, and I thought, yeah, I'll say that book.
Wonderful. And finally, do you have an inspirational quote or thought of yours that you could share?
I do as well, but I'm going to have to read it. Is that okay?
Go on then. That's fine.
It's a quote, and I've used it many times, so I should know it off by heart. But it's by a gentleman called Gordon Higginson, who was a fantastic medium and spiritualist and a great advocate for spiritualism. And it kind of just sums it up really for me. Before you can touch the spirit, you must find it within yourself. For all truth, for all knowledge, and all love must be found within oneself. And the spirit can never touch you and bring love and peace within your being and from your being until you have found it for yourself.
Beautiful.
It's a lovely quote, and he's an amazing gentleman, and certainly, and he knew Harry Edwards as well. So it's that era of greatness and pioneers and people who are just going forward and pushing for what they know to be true.
Beautiful. Wonderful way to end our In Conversation. Richard, thank you so much for agreeing to be in our hot seat on this conversation. I will switch the recording off now. We'll go into coffee and chat if there's anybody in the Zoom room who would like to ask a question. And if you're watching this on Catch Up on Facebook, thank you so much for watching. Good evening.